Now, one of the things that, for example, in his piece, Larry Summers talked about was, what if there is a tax sector and an untaxed sector? What if there's one sector that taxes capital and another sector that doesn't? So I'm going to modify my production function a little bit, and I'm going to make it f of k, or we can make it k and l, it doesn't matter. Where k, this is now going to be a capital aggregate. And k equals some function g of k1 and k2. That is, my capital is now a function of two underlying types of capital, k1 and k2. And I'm going to stick with my assumption that y equals c plus I1 plus I2. That is, by the way you produce either type of capital is just give up consumption to get more of it. All right, so same picture. Okay. All right, so you can put your investment into either type of good, but they're imperfect substitutes in production. All right, so that's going to be my model. Okay. Now, I'm going to think about an equilibrium now where you tax K1, you don't tax K2. Okay, but you get the idea. We're going to tax one. So in Larry Summers' example that he talked about in his article, he's going to think about the corporate sector that pays a corporate tax and some other sector, the non-corporate sector, that doesn't pay a corporate tax. All right. So what does my picture look like now? Well, I'm going to assume that this function is CRS. If it's CRS, then it makes my life very easy, because whenever you have a CRS production function, you could just think about the unit isoquant, right? It tells the whole story. I'm going to have G, this is K1, this is K2, this is G of K1, K2 equals 1. So that's the amounts of K1 and K2 that can be combined together to produce one unit of this capital aggregate. Absent the tax, you would go to the point where the slope of this line is 1, right? Because they're perfect substitutes in production. You can buy 1 unit of one or 1 unit of the other, so they got to be equally valued. And in fact, that would determine the cost of production. Your cost of production would be determined by the amount of either K2 or K1, right? Either of these would be equal to the cost of a unit, right? Because that's how much K it takes to produce 1 unit of the capital aggregate, right? This is how much input it takes to produce 1 unit of capital aggregate. Okay, so this point here would be equal to C of K. It would be equal to, unit cost of K. Now, what happens if I tax one of these goods and not the other? What does that do to the mix that people will use in production? Well, it's going to mean one of them is going to get more expensive and one of them is going to get relatively cheaper. I'm going to shift my production, say, which one did I tax? I taxed good 1, so good 1 got more expensive. I'm going to shift my production this way. Right? Right? That's going to be how much I shift my production toward good using K2, because K2 is not taxed unless of K1. So for any amount of the capital aggregate, I'm going to produce it using a different mix. Now, how much does that cost? How much does it cost to produce output? Any idea? Well, since K2 is not taxed, that's the cost of producing a unit of output, right? That's how much it would cost to produce a unit of output. Right? That's the amount I'd spend to produce a unit of output. So the cost of the unit of output went up. All right. So now let's thinking about putting a corporate tax on that taxes only one of the goods.